Ladies and gentlemen of Ballet International, good evening or good morning. We have a very special guest today. Her name is Beverley Bagg. And when I first met Mrs. Beverley Bagg, she was in the Corps de Ballet in 1980, and she was a brilliant ballerina with a wonderful technique. She was very young at that time, but after so many years, I see that she kept the same youth that she always had and the same smile. I don't know how she make it. However, we are going to start this interview, and I am sure that many people on YouTube and on Ballet International page will follow this interview with great interest. So, good evening for me, Beverley Bagg, but I know it's the morning now in Canada. And
I'm not in Canada. I'm actually in the US.
oh, okay. So, but it's 10 o'clock in the morning, I think.
It's 10 o'clock in the morning, exactly, yes.
Wow. And here it's 7 o'clock at night.
In the evening, I know, yeah.
Yeah. So, can I call you Beverley instead to say Mrs. Beverley?
Absolutely.
Is that fine? Okay.
It's all good.
Like when we were in the ballet company.
Exactly.
Okay. So, Beverley, could you explain to us how did you start ballet and how this desire of becoming a ballerina grew up, and what were the the atmosphere that was next to you that helped you to develop this art form?
Well, I mean, a lot of people ask me that question, like, when did you start ballet? I started when I was three or four. And the reason I went to ballet actually was it was recommended by a physician because my posture was so appalling. I was pigeon-toed, and I had what they call pigeon-toed, is the toes turn in. That's how I walked.
Yeah.
And also I had a pigeon chest, which means the lower ribs were flared. So I was really kind of arched in my back.
Yes.
And so he recommended I go to ballet because he said it will correct the posture.
Yes.
Which it did. 62 years later, 63 years later, being involved in the profession, right? But the interesting thing is that I never really made a conscious decision to be a dancer. It was just how it evolved. It was just the journey. It was just the path that my life took. I started in a very little ballet school in my area. I lived in Sandringham in Johannesburg. And there was a ballet school there, Gail McConaughey. She had this little school in this tiny little, it was called in like a shopping mall. And she had this one little room. And that's where I started. And I stayed with Gail until I graduated, until I turned 18 and went to the Royal Ballet School. After I graduated school, I was with Gail the whole time. I stayed with her as my teacher. Occasionally I would do it when it came to the major exams. These iconic teachers, Raina Berman, she coached me for my solo seal and my advanced, but most of the time I was with Gail. And also I went to the art school, right? So I went to the Johannesburg High School for Art, Ballet, Music and Drama. And so then I had the teachers there. Marjorie Sturman was another icon.
Yes, I know.
in Johannesburg at the time. So, she coached in the exams, well, if you could call it coaching. But so that's where it started. So many people ask me that question. When did you make a decision to be a dancer? And I never really did. It was just the path. It was just the journey.
Yes, that was the kickstart of your career.
Well, when people ask me today, how long have you been dancing? And then I think back, and it's when I started at 3, I'm 65. So it's, it's 62 years I've been involved in the profession. And that when you think it through, I find that quite overwhelming, actually. That I'm still doing it, right? Still performing a little bit and still heavily involved in the
And you
teaching.
must never stop. You must always continue as much as you can.
As much as we can, our bodies, our bodies tell a different story, but I'm
Yes,
actually very lucky that I'm pretty healthy.
yes.
I don't have major injuries. I don't have joint issues. So I'm
Yeah.
fortunate in that way.
And when you were a child and you started ballet, how was the response of your family, of your father, your mother?
Oh, they were very supportive. I mean, they were behind me. I can't thank them how grateful and blessed I was to have such amazing support from my parents. I had three brothers as well. I had three brothers. I have two now. And my parents were really involved in my career. They were really involved in me.
Yes.
Um, I had the superstition that I wouldn't go. We used to do festivals,
Yes,
and
yes.
all these little competitions. And I had the superstition that I would not go on stage if my father was not backstage.
Yes,
And so he was always backstage with me. And I'm pretty sure that impacted on my brothers as well, because my parents were so over involved
yes,
in what I was, in my profession and in my vocation, because at that time it wasn't a profession, it was more a vocation, right?
yes, yes, I
So,
understand. And how then you started working with Pact Ballet?
well, when I left the ballet company, when I left school, I graduated from the art school, and I had a year at the Royal Ballet School. I
Yes.
did a year of training at the Royal Ballet School. Wanted to get into the Royal Ballet Company, but that just never happened. And
Because it was too difficult technically, or because it was a
well,
difficult?
it was the first time I had been away from home, and I was 17 actually. I was 17 years old. Went to the Royal Ballet School and was very, very unhappy. It was a terrible, terrible year for me. I got very sick. I got an eating disorder.
Oh,
And was very sick, and so I had to come back. And I came back. It took me a couple of years to really recover from that.
yeah.
When I got to the Royal Ballet School, it was so new to me. I'd never been away from home before. It was quite overwhelming, actually, and I couldn't really afford good food, and so I gained a lot of weight. And what they did, they threw me out of pas de deux class because I was too heavy. And so they put you on diet. I had to go and get weighed every week. And with that, I just got thinner and thinner and thinner. I was so determined, right, to get to, and I feel, and to be honest, if we're being honest, I feel like even today, I'm really my own worst enemy, because I remember when I was at the school, and it has been a pattern through my whole life, that I've always compared myself to others and never really had this inherent belief in myself. And so when you do that, you always, it's demeaning to you as a, and so, I would look at all the other dancers and wish I was as strong as them, and, just always making those comparisons. And I don't think that was healthy emotionally for me at all whatsoever.
Yes.
So, but I got really sick. And in fact, to the point that I actually had to be brought home. One of my friends, actually, her name was Isabel Taylor. She was in class with me, and she called my parents and said, "You better bring Beverley home, because otherwise she's going to get very, very ill." So I came home, and when I came home, it was about 4 months of just trying to ground myself again. And I tried to get into Cape Town City Ballet, which was Cape Heb at the moment, with David Poole. And David Poole would not take me because I was too thin. I spent a couple of months at the school, Cape Town, the school in Cape Town, and tried to get into the ballet company, and he would not take me. So then I went up to Johannesburg, went back to where my home was. And Denise Schultz and Louis Godfrey were artistic directors of the company at the time. And so they took me into the company, and
This is
The rest
how it started slowly,
how
slowly.
it started. Yeah, exactly.
Do you think this up and down of the weight was linked with a mental sort of, how can you say, not a depression, but a mental state that you were looking to others and maybe you couldn't compare yourself technically at the same level with others, and that was
Absolutely.
destroying for you?
Absolutely. It's destructive, you know, and as a teacher, I'm very cautious about that with my students.
Yes.
I'm very, very aware of it's I don't know, you know, is it nature or nurture?
Yeah.
Right? Is it the profession that kind of brings this out in us as dancers, where we have, you know, very low self-esteem, and
Yes.
we don't really inherently have the belief of what we can do, or is it inherent in your nature? So I think that's a very interesting debate or discussion to have,
Yes.
because, you know, we are always under a microscope. We're always being critical of ourselves. Others are being critical of us. And it's how you deliver that is really important.
Yes.
And so, you know, in those days, in the 70s, what they did, I gained weight. They cut me out of pas de deux class and said, you're not coming back until you lose weight. And so
This is
in
what
that
happened.
environment,
I understand you very well, because this is what happened to me when I was dancing in Italy at Naples at the
right.
Teatro San Carlo.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very pleased about the atmosphere that I found in the ballet company. Ballet company was very nice, but there was a sort of war inside me, you know, inside my mental state. And the only way that I could quit the ballet company was to eat. And if I tell you that when I was dancing in Pact, I was something like 68 kilos, 70 kilos.
Oh, really?
Yes. When I started eating at the Teatro San Carlo, I nearly reached 95 kilos.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And when they made an audition, but I made that on purpose. When I made an audition, the choreographer called me. It was Ugo Dellara, and he told me, I'm sorry, but I cannot accept you because you are overweight.
Weight.
And
Right.
I was very happy to leave the company, because that was the only key that helped me to leave the company. And once I left the company, I started my regime, food and work again, and I reached 68 kilos as I was before.
Yeah.
You see, so everything is linked with a mental state
Oh,
of a dancer.
100%. And I mean, what happened was I was always kind of, I wasn't always very thin. Like I never in my whole growing up, my mother was a very big woman. And so I wasn't thin. I was kind of what they say, big boned, you know, and so, and but when I got there, and I usually was around, I don't kilos, pounds, I was usually around 110 to 115 pounds. That was my normal weight.
Yes.
I went up to 145 pounds. That was a lot for me because I'm small, I'm tiny, right?
Yes.
So that was a lot of extra weight for me.
Yes.
And the problem is when I came back to South Africa, I was 81.
Oh.
So I lost almost 40 to 80, that's 60 pounds in a very short space of time. And I actually wrote a diary, and I'm so sorry I cannot find that diary, because I wrote a diary and it was so unhappy. I mean, I remember reading passages of the diary. I would write down every single thing that I ate. You know, today I had half an apple and a quarter of this and that, you know what I mean? It was so sick. I was so ill. And
yes,
I
you
was
went.
just
You felt on the opposite way. So
exactly.
totally opposite.
And it took me, and honestly, I did not, in terms of, did not get over that until I left the ballet company.
Hmm.
I started having kids. And it was only when I started, you know, when it was somewhat normalized, my life was
Yeah.
somewhat normalized, that
Yeah.
everything started to kind of,
Yes, yes.
you know, function in the right way.
This is why ballet dancers are very vulnerable, because who less, who more, we are all humans, but we are very, very sensitive
Very
to
sensitive. Exactly. Exactly.
very, very like a sponge. Just one word of the choreographer or the teacher would either bring you up or would make you fall down mentally, and there is no way of return, you know?
Exactly. And you get those little triggers, right? There's a little trigger, a little sentence that would trigger all those emotions to come back.
Yes.
As an older, I mean, now, I was just performing again, and it's so interesting because those little triggers are still sitting on your shoulder,
Yes.
even at my age, like even at this, you know, at the maturity. I mean, mentally and emotionally, I'm so much more mature, and yet that little devil is still sitting on my shoulder, very, you know, little whispering.
Yes, it's like a little ghost behind
I
you.
know, and it's and you know, you have to reflect and think, oh my goodness, did that really resonate with me? Did that really, you know, I'm now a quite mature woman, and here I am still having those thoughts.
Yes, yes.
So changing your behavioral patterning, right? Your
Yeah.
thinking is
Well,
really,
that means that you are still young. You see, even if the age is still going on, you
I
are
hope
still young.
so.
So, who were your teachers at the Royal Ballet, Royal
So
Academy?
I had when I arrived, I had Marion Lane. She was my first teacher, and then Pamela May.
Wow.
I know, and then I eventually kind of toward the end of the year, just before I left, I was Eileen Ward. I mean, these were the most remarkable teachers that I had, and I don't think I really, because I was so ill, you know, and I don't think I really reaped the benefits of the training at that school until many years later.
Yes. Maybe also on a second thought, you couldn't realize the progress and take the benefit of it because you were more linked with your personal problems.
Exactly. So I wasn't really
Yes.
equipped
Yes.
emotionally and mentally to you know, to.
Yes. But what gave you the other side of the medal and gave you a new opportunity, I think, that you find it much easier and at your ease when you started working with Packed Ballet, you know, with Ashley Killer, with
Right. And
all those
yeah,
people, the great artists, and
amazing.
amazing. And so you didn't have the same conflict that you had at the Royal Ballet with yourself. You were at your ease.
A little bit. A little
Little
bit.
bit.
We always we always very competitive with ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you I observe now because I teach ballet companies, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, I was with Alberta Ballet for 7 years as a ballet mistress, but now I'm teaching. So you walk into the room when you teach a ballet company, and you can really assess the connection that the dancers have, like that you can really assess an atmosphere in a room.
Yes,
And
it's
so
like a Wi-Fi connection. You feel
exactly.
a certain
And I'm
electricity.
very intuitive in that
Yeah.
way, you know, having had so
Yeah.
much experience. So I
Understand.
can really assess the connection that the dancers have in a company. And I was just teaching, had the wonderful opportunity of teaching Les Ballets Jazz de Montreal And that was an interesting thread because one of the dancers in the company started doing my Zoom classes when I was during the pandemic.
Yes.
He's a student of an amazing teacher, Barbara Chonan, who's actually South African. And she teaches in Ontario. She's a teacher in Ontario.
Yes.
And she's an examiner and she does the RAD. So he was one of her students. And so through him, I got to teach the company. And it's one of the most amazing experiences for me because I walked into that room and I felt this wonderful, cohesive atmosphere in this company. And you could tell that it's a very close knit dancers. It's a small group. It's a small group. And I think that's much easier in a small group, you know, with a smaller company.
Big one, yes.
These bigger companies, particularly when the bigger companies do have a very, like Pack did, right? It had a very distinctive hierarchy, like they were quarter ballet soloists, principal dancers.
Yes.
I think that kind of also creates a little bit of tension within the company. Whereas if you have a company where everybody is recognized for what they can do, and everybody, there's equality within the company, then it makes it very different.
And how many years did you dance with Packed Ballet?
I joined in 1976. I left for a year to go and work in Germany. I was in Frankfurt Ballet for 1 year. And then I came back to the company. And when I came back, that's when I was made principal dancer. And I left in 1989. 14 years. 14
years. Well, that's quite a lot, you know, a very good experience. And also Packed Ballet, you know, gave you the best price because it was a wonderful ballet company.
It was a very strong ballet company.
I don't know if you agree with me, but I think it's very difficult today to find a ballet company such as Packed Ballet in Europe or maybe in other places.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have the big ballet companies, you know, the very big ones. There's very few of them left.
Yes.
In Europe, there are more, but in the US, you know, there's the New York City Ballet and American Ballet.
Many choices, many ballet companies. Yes.
There are many ballet companies which are very hard.
Many opportunities also for the dancers and for the teachers.
Well, they are, but they're very hard to get into, these big ballet companies. So the dancers, because most of them have a school, and so unless you're exceptional, they tend to take the dancers from the schools.
Yes.
Because they're training the dancers in the vision that artistic director is taking, right? So it's not easy to get into these companies. There are little companies like satellite companies all over in Vancouver, in Canada, in Europe. I mean, Europe is amazing. And a lot of Canadian dancers are actually selecting to go to Europe because there's more opportunity for them there than there is in Canada. I mean, Canada's a very big country, but there's not a lot that's happening in Canada. You know,
well, the one I know, you have only 3 big ballet companies: the Alberta Ballet, the National Ballet of Canada, and les Grands Ballets Canadiens.
There's Les Grands Ballets Canadiens, Winnipeg Ballet, National Ballet, and Alberta Ballet. 4. Yeah.
Well, for such a big country, I think it's too little.
That's not a lot. And in Vancouver, there's Ballet BC, but it's very contemporary. It's contemporary. There's many contemporary companies in Montreal.
Yes.
There's a couple of contemporary companies in Alberta. There's one I know in Edmonton. Excellent. There's an amazing Wen Wei, his name is, and he runs the company. There's artistic director, amazing choreographer. And then in Toronto, there's a few. And there's a couple out east, like really Nova Scotia and I know Atlantic Ballet. They're small ballet companies, mostly touring.
What do you mean by small? Something like 20 dancers?
No, 7, 8, 9, 10 dancers. Yeah. So they do, you know, so then their work has to be very specific
Yeah.
to how many dancers there are in the company. And if they would be doing a nutcracker,
Yeah.
then they would have, you know, they would hire people to come in to complement the company. But yeah, there's not much available. I mean, there's much more in the US, but it's very hard to get into companies in the US.
Yes.
Very.
Well, because they have their own point of view, and if technically you are not a little bit like them, you cannot join the company at all. You have to be technically very strong.
You have to be technically strong, and you have to be what they want, their look.
Yes.
So some companies like only tall dancers.
Yes.
Some, you know.
Yes, like a balancing style, ballerinas are very tall.
Exactly, balancing style, very, very strong in the US.
Yes.
So.
And once you left Pact Ballet, did you always stay in contact with some dancers of Pact Ballet, of the company?
Yeah. Well, we've got. I mean, when I come back to South Africa, we've always try and have like a little reunion. Also, our class. Our graduating class, we've got a very, very strong connection.
Yes.
And we have a WhatsApp group, right? So we're all on WhatsApp, and because we're all over the world now, and we message each other all the time. I have certain dancers I have a very strong connection with in the company. Stella, I always will come and see Stella Pike.
Well, she's a sweetheart. She's a sweetheart.
Oh my gosh, she's a special woman.
Yeah.
And
well, I made an interview with her about a few months ago.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And I was so happy.
Yeah, she's special. Diane Finch, but she was in my class. Leanne, you know, those people I see mostly when I come out. Yeah.
All the people that you are naming now, they are wonderful, really wonderful people. I know that you have been also dancing with Vincent Hantam.
Yes, I know you did an interview with him.
Yeah.
Vincent came to guest in the company, and actually I think the first thing we did together was Don Quixote.
Yes.
We were cast together in Don Quixote. I learned so much from Vincent. It was amazing. I was so honored to have him as my partner because he taught me so much as a dancer, as a young dancer at that time. Yeah. We still keep in contact, and
yes, well, he's
amazing, you know, that when you have those
person.
Yeah, you have those connections with these people, and years passed, and then you'll suddenly be in the same city, and it's as if nothing's changed.
Yes.
You've just got older, right? It's
only the age that changes, but the heart and the mind doesn't change.
Exactly.
We always stay in, you know, dancers sometimes they are very naughty, because in a ballet company, sometimes it may happen that you meet a dancer, they work next to you at the bar, and during one performance or the second, you just exchange a few words. But then when you leave the company and you remember those dancers who were next to you at the bar and working with you at rehearsals, you miss them much more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even this experience I just had now when I was working with a choreographer in Vancouver, and there were 5 dancers. There were 5 of us, and all ranging in age. So there was 3 women and 2 men.
Yes.
3 women, 3 men. So there were 6 of us.
Yeah.
And there was one young dancer. He was like 18, 19, maybe 20.
Very young.
2 very young dancers, and then one older dancer. Yeah, so there were 3 men and 3 women.
Yes.
And, I miss them. We spent all this time together in the last 2 months. Right?
Yes.
We were every day together in the last 2 months working on this piece, and it's really, I miss them a lot.
Yes. And so when did you start? You decided to teach?
Well, we in the company, as principal dancers, we were allowed to teach company class.
Was that in Johannesburg or in Pretoria?
So that's kind of where it started, in Johannesburg. So we got to teach company class. We could teach the quarter ballet, because we had split classes
Yes.
in the company. So so we were allowed to teach the quarter ballets members, and so that's where my teaching experience actually started.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in your classes, all the enchaînements and the exercises that you were doing at the bar and in the center work that you were giving and you were teaching to the ballet company, was something linked with the technique that you have been learning in the background of your teachers, of Marjorie Sturman, of at your early age?
I see what you mean. Yeah. I think it was, but I never really realized it was. You know what I mean? I mean, I was really, the thing is that we did mostly with Marjorie Sturman.
Yes.
It was mostly exam work, so it was set, right?
Yes.
Only at art school,
Yes.
we have unset classes.
Yeah.
So and I think that's, as a teacher now, I think that's very important, that the dancers don't only, when you're training these young dancers, you don't only give them, I think it's important that they understand the experience of having an open class where they have to
Yes.
think for themselves. It's not just every day they come in and do the same steps.
Yes.
And, so it's a very different way of training.
Yeah.
I guess I would understand keeping a bar for a month or two, so that you can work on certain aspects of their technique,
Yes.
so they don't have to think about the exercises.
Yes.
But I do think that having that diversity in terms of, yes, they've got their exam work and their vocational exams, but they have to have the experience of being able to do an open class, to be able to come into a room, be a teacher in front of you, think quickly, get the exercises quickly. I think that's a very important part of their training, because when you're in a ballet company and a choreographer comes into the company, he's not going to spend a whole day teaching you the steps, because you're slowly learning.
If or either you know the things or you're put aside.
Exactly. So I think that kind of aspect of their training is very, very important. And it's trainable. It's not like, it's not like something that you cannot do. I think it's just getting used to it and training your brain in a different way.
Yes. And now that you are a teacher, that you are teaching in many different places in United States and I think also in Canada, when it happens to you that you have a ballerina who is a little bit a twin link with the problems that you had in the past of eating too much, or maybe the weight, of maybe depression, are you able to help her to get out of this state?
Jean-Pierre, I'm not a psychologist, so I think it's the approach as a teacher. If they're having these terrible mental illness and emotional mental problems, I think that it's not our job as teachers to counsel them.
Yes.
However, I think your approach as a teacher is very important. Like, I'm not a trained psychologist, so I wouldn't even attempt to address that in a student.
But maybe you could give some advice.
I give advice, exactly. Yeah. I never ever talk about weight, ever. I think if you see a student that's gaining weight, you try and encourage them to more eat healthily and to be aware, of their bodies, but definitely would never ever say to a student, you're overweight, you've got to go on diet. It's a tough one. In the ballet company in Alberta Ballet, when I was ballet mistress there, the artistic director would he would say to them, well, you're not in the best tone that you could be. So he would kind of,
yes.
blur the edges a little bit.
A sort of camouflage.
Overweight, go on diet, in a much softer, more compassionate way.
Yeah.
I find that it's a very, very sensitive issue with dancers, because we are aware of our bodies all the time. We're looking in the mirror every single day, and we are judging ourselves every single day. And so to bring that into the conversation, I find is a trigger, which can lead to some very serious problems.
Yes.
Exactly.
So how many years now you have been dancing, and how many years you have been teaching?
Well, I've been teaching since I left the ballet company, which is 1989.
Yes.
So
well, that's quite a lot.
That's a long time. And then I dabble in dance. I dabble in performing.
So when was the magic moment that you discovered the progressing ballet technique?
Okay, so the magic moment was actually when I left the ballet company, and it wasn't progressing ballet technique, but I left the ballet company and didn't want to have, actually, funny enough, I wanted nothing to do with dance. And when I left the company, and so, which I won't go into, but so at the time, I kind of started doing like fitness instructor, and was just doing some personal training and stuff like that. And the University of the Witwatersrand was offering a course. It was after school course in anatomy and physiology. And I'd left the ballet company, so I thought, I'm going to take this course. And it was at night, you would go, it was after hours, you would go for 2 hours or 3 hours in the evening, twice a week or 3 times a week.
Yes.
They actually, we worked with cadavers. So, so that for me was fascinating, because that kind of really piqued my interest in the physiology and the functioning of the body, how the body functions, and how we can, we can kind of incorporate all that kind of knowledge into teaching. And so instead of just saying to the dancer, turn out, just turn out, your turnout is not good enough, just turn out, being a little bit more observant, and also being a little bit more specific in terms of where your turnout muscles are. This is where where the turnout muscles are. Let's see if we can facilitate the turnout from those muscles. And it just kind of spiraled into this amazing.
Just to explain to the dancers which are the muscles that work to keep the turnout.
Exactly. We weren't taught like that.
Yes.
Knowledge is power for me. And so giving these dancers that kind of information and that knowledge gives them the power to take responsibility for themselves.
Exactly.
Which is so amazing. And as a dancer, we never had that.
No.
And so, which is, I'm sure every dancer can say the same. Every dancer that is my age right now can say, oh my gosh, I wish I knew then what I know now. That's human nature. That's life.
That's life. Yes, it's
life, right? So thank God we always learning, and thank God we always can be involved in professional development. So that's really important. And so then when I started teaching, I kind of started to incorporate those concepts into my teaching. And then I met Marie Walton Mahone, and I'd heard through Robin Siegel, I heard about this program, and Marie came to Vancouver to do the work, and I did one of the courses, and we found that we had a really strong connection. And so I started incorporating it into my work. What I find was there was a huge disconnect for me between what we were doing in class
Yes.
and what was being demanded by these dancers.
Yes.
And the conditioning was a wonderful supplemental program
Yes.
to allow them to have the power and the strength to meet what the choreographers were demanding.
Yes.
And, besides the fact that I became very interested in injuries and rehabbing from injuries, and so working with dancers one-on-one who have had injury and bringing them back into the studio, and bringing them back to the stage again, because
Yes.
as a dancer, an injury is absolutely devastating. So finding this work was such a gift for me.
Yes.
And so I started doing courses and incorporating it into my teaching. And then during the pandemic, I was asked to be a tutor, the Canadian tutor for PBT. And it's such an honor for me to be able, and a privilege to be able to share this work with the teachers.
That is, I think it's beautiful what you're saying, because pandemic has been cutting off many dancers from work. And thanks to the pandemic and your strong will, you found a new way of your life, because you discovered many things with progressing ballet technique.
Well, I think we all did, I think, and the progressing ballet technique was so remarkable for these students who couldn't jump, so you could use some of the exercises were so amazing, particularly in the Allegro section, because there's a whole Allegro section to the progressing ballet technique without actually jumping. And so that they could kind of, they still had the tonality for jumping without the stamina. Of course, the stamina is a whole nother aspect of it. But they didn't lose all that much. And I think that was the gift of this work to these dancers.
Do you think the progressing ballet technique should be applied in ballet companies?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that in I think it's in Orlando Ballet. They have it. I think it's in Orlando. And I know Robin Siegel was just in Orlando. I think it was Orlando. And they have incorporated. They do it 5 days a week in the school and into the company. I know Australian Ballet. It's very, very. It's very involved in Australian Ballet. So I think so. I think for a dancer, as a tool, a conditioning tool to warm up before class. Most dancers are in the studio a half an hour before they start, and just do these exercises, just to get the body moving, to open out the fascia, to open out all the joints, because that's the most important thing as a dancer before you start class. You want to mobilize the body.
Yes.
Exactly.
It helps both the physical and the mental.
And the mental. And it's very internal too, the progressive, which I love. It's, when I do it for myself, it's a very internal, introspective work. And so you really become attuned with your body, because
it's like a sort of a meditation, like a yoga that you do with yourself.
Almost. And I can't do yoga. I'm not a yoga.
No, but I mean, it's I'm referring to the mental state.
No, exactly.
Yes,
and
it helps. Yes.
Because
and it helps you. Sometimes it helps you also to heal from injuries, or from headaches, or from stomach problems. And I experienced that on myself, because often, I have headaches, or sometimes I have teeth problem, or, normal problem that all human beings have. And instead of picking up the medicine, ibuprofen or things like that, I just do a very simple class. And after the class, I feel much better, like if I took a medicine. And this helps very much, very much. And
what the PBT does as well is It really gives you a lot of feedback on your body. You become really attuned. And that's what's amazing for these young students who do them, because they're doing them, they're 8 years old, right? They're doing PBT.
Yes.
But the ball gives you so much feedback. And it really determines which side is weaker and which side is stronger. So you become really self-aware.
Yes.
And that I find is fascinating.
Yes.
You know, that young dancers, they become so self-aware. They know. You ask a 10-year-old, where are your adductors? And they know exactly. They know exactly what it is. So not only are they getting this amazing knowledge, but it is a very introspective for me. When I do it myself, I find it just it's a wonderful mental tool for me, just to really feel how my muscles are working.
You know, once I went to a,
I think, and to kind of really stress in a very safe environment. Very safe. So you're not going to get injured. You don't have a teacher sitting, you know, giving you splits between two chairs or anything like that. It's a very, very safe environment that you're working in.
And I remember that once, that was a few years ago, I went to a sport shop to buy, to acquire one of those big, you know, balls.
The balls,
Yes, that you had, you have a machine to put the air inside.
Pump it up,
Yes. And so I did the whole thing. I just put the air in the ball and everything, and I started my training. The next day, but the ball wasn't in a good condition. So the next day I started again my training, and the ball blew up, went boom, and I found myself in 1 second sitting on the floor.
No, really?
The air went away, and I was, from there I went on the floor.
That's dangerous.
That is dangerous. So I had to buy another one, but that was
not a good ball then. It wasn't a very good quality of ball, because
maybe
I've never heard of that, a ball blowing up like that. Some of the balls actually, some of them when you buy them, they have sand at the bottom because they want to weight them so that they don't roll around. Those are dangerous. You cannot use those balls.
No, because otherwise you miss them and you fall on the floor.
Exactly. You can't.
And so what is your satisfaction as an artist, you know, now that you are teaching and sometimes you are also dancing, but comparing yourself with the past, which you were the dancer, and now that you are the teacher, which is more appealing to you and giving you more satisfaction, the dancing or the
Oh boy. That's a good question. I think that the dancing is, how can I put this? And I don't know if I should be saying this. Anyway, I didn't leave the ballet company in a very good state. I left the ballet company. I was severely depressed.
And was that in South Africa?
In South Africa, yeah. I did not leave the ballet company in a very good way. So I have, you know, when I first came to Canada, I had to, when I first arrived in 1994, 1993, I'd left the ballet company in 89, then I had two children, then I had two sons, and was teaching at that time. And when we arrived in Canada, I was teaching, I think, I don't know, I might have gone to do class, and I met a young woman, and she saw me and she said, "Oh, I want to do a piece on you, choreograph something with one of the dancers, another dancer, male dancer, pas de deux, basically."
Yes.
And it was on point, and I was in my, I think, late 30s, must have been my late 30s, and nearly 40, and I agreed. And for me, it was, a way of proving to myself that I could still dance. So I did it, and so it was a most enriching experience, because, as I said, when I left the ballet company, I was just, I felt like I don't know how I even became a principal dancer.
So it was like a sort of self-reward that you.
It was exactly. It was trying to just, self-nurturing, basically.
Yes. Yes.
So and then that was it. And then I started teaching. Dancing, we never leave the theater as a dancer. There's something magical about being on stage. As we get older, there's certain things that are very disturbing, like lights, and proprioception awareness, because of our, we get older. So that I find very difficult.
Yeah.
But being on stage and being able to express yourself emotionally in that way is something quite special.
Yes.
So that's what I'm kind of embracing right now, is being able, number one, at my age, there's so much I can't do. I mean, there's, I can't, there's certain things I just can't do, and my body will not do it anymore. But still just having to be able to express yourself. And that was what was so poignant about this piece I just did, because basically it was like the end of life.
Yes.
And so I did a 5-minute solo, and it was very, very sad, actually, because it was almost like about the end of your life. And that's what he wanted in the piece, basically. But being on stage is something quite exceptional. And however, when you're teaching and you are watching and observing and witnessing the growth of these young dancers, it is so satisfying and enriching as a teacher to see. And so it's two very different, responses to performing and to teaching as well.
So you have been dancing in South Africa, in Germany, in United States, in Canada, and in the United Kingdom when you were young. So all this experience that you had accumulated throughout those years, those precious years of your life, what do you think about the ballet and the evolving ballet of today? Is it different from the technique I'm talking, the technique than the one that you knew before? The way of dancing, the way of choreographing, the way of giving class, the exercises at the bar, the exercises, the enchaînement in the center, they are different from the one that we used to have some decades ago. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think that, and I'm sure some other teachers would disagree with me. I mean, it's a debate, right? We'll have our opinions. I think that it's definitely changed.
Yeah.
The class structure is a class structure.
Yes.
Right? It's a structure, and it's fascinating. I find it fascinating because it was just World Ballet Day, right? Yes. And so I love watching the classes, because all the different ballet companies do different classes. And so I love watching that. I learn from that, because as a teacher, you can become in your little box. You get into your little box, and then suddenly you see somebody else teaching, and they say, oh my gosh, I haven't done that step forever, right? And so that is a wonderful learning experience for me. But watching the class, it's remarkable, because between Japan, Brazil, London, America, it's still the same. It's a plie and a tendu and a
Yes.
jeté and a bras de jambe, and the structure is there.
Yes.
So it's the creativity, you know, as a teacher, sometimes, and I have this fault, I've been wrapped over the knuckles with it as well a few times, going into a company class and teaching. As a teacher, sometimes we like to be, you know, we don't want the class to be too choreographic. Like you
Yes.
don't want it to be, some teachers are.
Yes.
Some teachers like to move very quickly, and others like to take their time. So that structure is the same. And the content of the class would be the same. The only difference is that when they're doing développés à la seconde, their legs are here and not here, which was me, right? And so that has changed.
Yes.
However,
And what do you think that of the legs who are going up instead of on the side?
that's another opinion.
Oh.
For me, it's aesthetic.
Mm.
I'm a dancer, and it's the aesthetic that I want to see on stage.
Yes.
So if the legs are up here and everything else is so distorted, it doesn't work for me. That doesn't work for me. However,
I agree. Yes.
the demands, the choreographic demands today are much, much more challenging for dancers, I think, I feel. They're doing a lot more contemporary work, contemporary on point, you know, which is what they call contemporary on point. And so that requires a lot of power, strength, and dancers, I feel today we weren't considered athletes, but today they have to be. Today they have to be athletes.
Yes.
And so I think the whole kind of concept has changed. Dancers, I feel today are they athletic, they powerful, they're strong. You know, you don't have that wafer thin.
Yes.
Some companies, yes, but you know, most no. These dancers, because they have to be very powerful.
Yes.
You have to jump higher, they have to turn more, you have to get your legs higher. So all those demands are there. And in a good and a bad way, competitions are kind of fostering and these demands. You know, you see these on Instagram and social media, all these aspects are fostering, you know, these demands of these dancers trying to, you know, do more, jump higher, more turns.
So a difficult question.
They've all been difficult, Pierre.
Just in case, let's think in this way. Just in case they would tell you, Beverley, we would like you for maybe 1-2 years, you become an artistic director of a ballet company.
Okay.
First, how would you feel about that? And second, what would be the changes that you would like to adopt in the company to improve the work of the ballet company, to improve the repertoire, to improve and to challenge each dancer of the you know, the body, to embody the corps de ballet with new things, you as an artistic director, yet that you would give this input to the ballet company. So upon your experience, of course.
Okay, so firstly, I would never want to be an artistic director. I don't think
one.
So I've avoided the question completely, but no, I will answer. I just don't think I have the skills to be an artistic director. I know where I'm good, and I'm good in the studio.
Yes.
You know, I have to recognize where I feel comfortable, not comfortable, but where I feel comfortable. Yes, where I feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable being an artistic director. I don't even feel comfortable owning a school. And that's what I've chosen not to. I prefer to guest teach and I can be on faculty in a school, but I don't want to own a school. I don't want the headache. I don't want the administrative headache of it. As an artistic director, you have to have a vision of how you want the company to go, right?
Yes.
I feel personally that classical ballet is a dying art.
Yes.
I think that the tragedy of it's just the climate today, the social climate, I feel, people feel it's elitist and it's, tradition. It's erased tradition and
But would there be a way to not keep this art form dying?
Well, it's education. It's education. We have to I think, people still, like in Vancouver, for instance, there is no classical ballet company.
Yes.
So when the classics do come, like if we do get guest companies that come in, very rarely, mostly a nutcracker, that's it.
Yes.
It's sold out. So I think people still believe inherently in the classics. I know what's been happening with the classical ballets is they're changing the narratives. They're going more contemporary in terms of the narrative. They'll take a Giselle and change the narrative, or they'll take a Sleeping like Max Eck has been brilliant with that kind of stuff. For me, I'm a classicist and I'm a traditionalist, so I feel it's really important to keep the classics.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's not real because the choreographers and there's so many beautiful choreographers in the world that are doing more contemporary work.
Yes.
So I think it's most important that these dancers have the experience of as much diversity in terms of their, in terms of the content of the company as possible.
Yes.
I think having doing classical ballet is very, very important in terms of just their foundation and just to keep the tradition alive.
Well, classical ballet, after all, is the base of the technique.
Absolutely, and every contemporary company does classical ballet.
Yes.
And so even young, and I teach in Vancouver, there's a lot of contemporary postgraduate programs. So these are postgraduate 3-year kind of programs for dancers. And it's contemporary dance, but every day they do a classical ballet class. And so that is very, very important in just to keep, you're right, to keep the foundation.
Yes.
So, I think never put all your eggs in that one basket. You have to diversify. You have to give the dancers experience. And I think it's so enriching for them in terms of, for me, unfortunately, we never did contemporary dance. And so I can coach a contemporary piece, but it's not my comfort level.
Yes.
I'm not comfortable in it. I couldn't do it. But it's the same as me being a teacher to a male dancer. Yes, I can do it, but I think it's important that they also have a male teacher, particularly, when they're in their formative years. Because
it's a little bit like me when I have to teach to the girls the point class.
Exactly.
I am limited for that,
I could teach a double tour, but I never really did one. I should have been able to do one, but I never did because we never did that in class. Today I see there's an amazing dancer who was with Ballet BC, and she would do double tours in class better than the men, So I feel that, yes, the classics are very important. And I think we need to keep those traditions, the big ballets. But the problem is that also with that is expense. And financially, these companies, some of them are not big enough to maintain the classics. And so that is why
they are dying.
Exactly.
Many of them, they are dying from financial problems.
Well, and the pandemic didn't help that either.
No,
so
no,
you're
no.
absolutely absolutely right. Many of them, when it comes to costs of building sets and building costumes and theater rental and orchestras,
Yes.
very few performances, unless you're in the very big companies, they don't have orchestras anymore. They've always got, it's always,
Yes, the music, tape recorder.
yeah. It's all been recorded, pre-recorded music.
Yes. And so instead of talking about artistic director, let's forget about it. What about
I'm happy to talk about it. It's just
what about being a choreographer?
okay, that's a whole another thing as well. So I dabble in choreography. It comes back to those little kind of devils that sit on your shoulder, right? Because when you're choreographing, I feel like I'm being judged, and I don't like that. So I'm very kind of cautious. I'm very shy about doing choreography. I would love to choreograph on a company, but I'm too intimidated to do that. I will not do that.
Well,
so
you have to gain confidence.
Yeah, you feel like you're being judged. And then, what if they don't like the piece? What if the dancers don't like the piece? I've been in that situation, and I don't want to put myself there.
Beverley, if I may give an advice, never do what you do in class or in choreography and think about others.
I know.
You must think about yourself and what people will
would have thought after all these years I would figure that out, right? So
what people will say about your choreography and your work, it comes here and it goes out there.
Yeah.
And you keep going and you do what you believe you can do at the best. Then if you do mistakes, you will learn from it.
Exactly. Well, I have choreographed before, and I've got one little student that I'm working with right now, and I've done choreography for her, and that was actually quite successful. So it's I do enjoy choreography. I do, and I choreograph in a very interesting way, because being able to still move, I kind of do it on my body first, and then I forget the bit. And I said, "Did you see what I just did?" And they went, "No." And I said, "Well, I can't remember what I just did." So I kind of work it through my body first, which is actually quite nice. Then and then share that with the young dancers.
So what are you, excuse me?
I will send you a little video of some choreography I've done.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
And I would add something. I would love to make part of this packed ballet group, people on WhatsApp.
Oh, well, it's not packed ballet, it's our class.
Oh, okay.
It's our graduating class.
But if there are many people of packed ballet, I would love to join. Oh,
they a lot. I mean, there's Diane and myself and Charlotte again. Do you know Charlotte? Wonderful Charlotte. Charlotte again. And there's 12, 14 of us. Somewhere in the company.
It would be nice. I would love to join.
Well, we'll make our own group, champion. How about that? And we'll put Patsy in there and everybody.
So what are your wishes? The wishes that you wish for you in the next few years?
Next few years?
Yes.
That's a good question. I've been reflecting on that a lot since I've come here to San Diego. I think that I would love to do a little bit more guest teaching, just go travel. I love traveling. That's where the PT is really nice, because I get to travel a little bit with it.
Yes.
And I love guest teaching. I would love to, be invited to stage a full length. I've done a few, like I've done for Joburg Ballet. I staged Swan Lake and Romeo and Juliet for them.
Yes.
I helped Charlotte again, who's a remarkable teacher in New York.
Yes.
I helped her many years ago with Washington
Mm.
Ballet at the time. Septime Weber was artistic director, and we staged Giselle there.
Yes.
So, so you know, that kind of thing. I have been ballet mistress of a ballet company. I don't know if I would want to do that again at my age. It's a lot of work. I'm more comfortable, honestly, with professional dancers. You know,
Yes.
I love coaching one-on-one, like even working with, you know, pre-professional, professional dancers, coaching one-on-one.
Yes.
I'd like to have a little bit more time to actually travel and enjoy my life a little bit.
Yes.
My
Yes.
age, you know, how many good years do we have left?
Yes.
I'd love to do a Camino. I'd love to. No, I'm serious. I want to do a Camino.
Yes.
Looking at maybe doing the Portugal one. So that's where I kind of see my life going.
I
Yeah.
hope one day you will come to Rome and you will visit Rome.
I'd love to. Well, my friend, my partner, he's Italian, so maybe come. So you're situated in Rome.
Yes, I work and live in Rome, so I will be so honored to be your touristic guide when you come
I
to
would
visit.
love that. Well, when I do my Camino, I
Yeah.
will come via Rome.
Excellent. Excellent.
That.
So, Beverly, what is your wish that you would like to express to all the young dancers who are watching you in this interview? And every word that you have said, they are captivated, but to such a great experience that you had. So what is your wish that you would like to tell them, to the dancers?
What is my wish for them? It's a good question. I could be very trite and say, never give up. Everybody was saying, right? Don't give up. Embrace your gifts. We all have gifts, you know, and I never look at a dancer that comes into a room, doesn't matter who I'm teaching, and minimize their gifts.
Yes.
And even if they don't have perfect technique, even if they don't have the turnout, even if they don't have the feet, you want to encourage them to be the best that they can be. They've chosen to dance for a reason. It might not be because they want to be a professional dancer, but because they love dance, and hopefully because their parents didn't make them come into dance. But I feel that for these young dancers, if they've chosen to go into a studio, they need to just be so blessed and grateful that they, number one, can move, and number two, that they have the ability to move, and that they can feel the freedom and movement in their bodies and embrace that, because that is such a gift that some people don't have that. So that is such a gift that we all have, that we can that we can cherish.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
You know,
another difficult question. I like to ask difficult questions.
Seemingly.
Do you have any regrets of the past, that in case you would do all you have done, but maybe you would say, I would do it in a different way?
Yes, I do. I think if I'd been stronger mentally, I might have had a longer career in terms of the ballet company. I think if I had not allowed my emotional kind of baggage to destroy that for me, I think that's a big regret that I had. And that is just behavioral thinking. That is just changing your pattern of thinking. So that's a big one I have. But I feel like I've done everything that I've wanted to do. I try not to have too many regrets, because that is just, it's not good for your, it's not good, just for your health,
Yes.
your emotional and mental health.
So you have done what you have done, and
I've done what I've done, and
yes.
some of it's been good, some of it's been successful, some of it hasn't been so successful, but the ones that have not been all that successful have been a learning experience for me.
Yes.
So I've learned from that.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, I just want to within the framework, just nurture these dancers and allow them to feel and be the best that they can be in the most positive environment.
Yes. Yes.
That's the most important thing as a teacher, I feel. And I'm very fortunate that a lot of the time I can still demonstrate. So I think that's good as a teacher, for the dancers.
Yes.
And I just to be an example, to be an example to these young dancers.
Yes.
I think that's really important.
The beautiful message. And what is the wish that you would like to express to the people who don't do ballet? The one, for instance, there are some great number in Ballet International Group who are not ballet dancers, but they love ballet. They love the performing art. So what is your wish? In other words, how could they support the performing art of today? In which way?
I think just their presence. Like, the more people that you get actively involved in the profession, the more the profession will be able to grow and develop. So just, you can't ask a lot of people today financially for help because they don't have it. Because just in terms of the economy is so poor right now. But just having the support and, doing maybe volunteering.
Yes.
If they want, and just involve volunteering in a theater.
Yes.
So you can see the performances, and volunteering to do outreach, or volunteering to to work in a ballet company. I think that is shows support, and just being present. I think just having just being able to watch the performances and just being there in support of the profession. I think art is really important in our culture. Extremely important, and any government that wants to get rid of that is criminal.
I agree.
And so we need to nurture our culture, and that's the problem, because the ballet culture comes from years and centuries of history.
Yes. What is your message that you would like to give? I know that the Packed Ballet people, Packed Ballet artists are very naughty, because when I talk about them, about the interviews, they are very snobbish, Yes, we shall see. Well, let me think about it, and blah, blah, and blah, blah, and blah, blah. So, because I don't like to insist people to do the interview. When I see that the people have difficulty, then I just,
Well, honestly, Jean-Pierre, some people are intimidated to talk. I don't like talking.
Yes. Well, it was a miracle then to have you.
I know it is a miracle. I can't believe I've been speaking for an hour and a half. But
you have been so brave today. You have been talking.
It comes down to it's those little, on my shoulders, like, am I saying the right thing? Am I eloquent enough? Am I using the right language? That kind of stuff. And
yes, I know. But
I
had the same problem when I first started to do the interview, and because my English also is not very good, so I had to practice in front of the mirror during the pandemic, and I was talking to myself. And I was filming and registering my own interview to see what were the mistakes and in what I was saying. It was terrible in the beginning. So imagine something to Packed Ballet people that we find at our age now in the same ballet studio of the State Theatre, just for fun, to have a simple ballet training class,
Right.
but with our age of today, not like before. And that would be, I think, a beautiful thing if we could be able to all gather together in that same ballet studio, standing at the bar, and do a very easy class with the ballet master that we had.
I think it would be so much fun. That would be a
Yes,
lot.
that would be so good for our mental.
Because all the competition is gone, right? Like
Yes,
all,
yes,
we all on the same level right now. I mean, different
yes,
ages, but
yes, yes.
yeah,
Because also to compare our physical abilities and what we have lost physically.
exactly. But also you don't forget that some people never get the ballerina out of them, right?
No,
And
no,
so,
no.
you know, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, so there's a certain humility in being able to do something like that. There's a
Yeah.
certain humility in able to going into a room with your peers, and we were all different. Like some of us were principal dancers, some of us were not, and being able to put ourselves in that position
Yeah.
where we can kind of embrace what we had.
Yeah.
And that takes humility, and some people just don't have that.
Yes. Well, it would be a good training to mix all the things together.
Fantastic. It would be fantastic. I mean, yeah, unfortunately, sadly, some people have passed away, which
Yes, I know that many
is
of Pac Palais have passed away.
many.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think that would be a wonderful experiment.
Well, I think that the people
Bring
who
Ashley back to teach class. Ashley Killar.
that would be a super
Amazing.
dream to have Ashley Killer. You know that he wrote a beautiful book about the
I know, and it's just been released. I know this is. Have you read the book?
Well, I ordered it yesterday, and they told me that in a month's time I will receive it. So I hope to receive it for or Christmas or New Year Eve.
Wonderful.
And also he is on the list to be interviewed.
Oh, good. That should be a fascinating interview.
Yes, so I think that many people will be interested. But
Yeah,
I'm
very
still,
much.
I'm still not sure about that, but I am trying to slowly convince him. It's very difficult. Beverly,
Yes.
we have reached the end
Oh,
of our interview. I must honestly thank you,
I
because
thank
it
you.
was a big privilege and a big honor to have you online today.
Thank you very much. It was an honor for me.
You know, after this is the first time that we meet after how many decades? I left in 1982. So
Okay, so that I left in 1983, so that's it. 82.
yes.
How
So
long were
see how many decades?
you went? How long were you in the company? Just 3
2 years.
years?
2
Only
years.
2 years. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember the day that you danced, you know, there was a choreographic competition.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I don't know if you were pleased about that, but you have been dancing in one of my pas de deux with
That's
Stephen,
right.
with Stephen Melvin. You made a beautiful pas de deux, and
Right. That. Oh my goodness. I
and
must tell you, a lot of that time I blocked out, right? Because it was
yeah,
just so traumatic for me. But
yeah,
do you remember?
I cannot forget. I cannot forget. Unfortunately, I am someone who never forgets.
That's a good thing.
Yes, the good thing and the bad things.
It
However,
is a bad thing too.
yes, but we must never forget, you know, because if you forget, that means that your mind doesn't
I
want
know.
to think about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Beverley, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jean-Pierre. It's been an honor.
And what is your last words, message that you would like to say to all the Pact Ballet people? The love that you would like to send them?
Send them all my love. And yeah, I think that idea of coming into a room together would be fantastic. A big reunion from all the dancers.
That would be lovely.
Would be amazing.
Okay,
Yeah.
Beverley. So
Cheers, Jean-Pierre.
now we end up, and we stay online for the moment afterwards. I'm just going to stop the recording now.
Okay.
Okay, I hope it doesn't cut off.